So, with 28 years later, the Bone Temple just around the corner, it feels like the perfect time to go all the way back to the beginning. We're going to recap the entire terrifying saga, from the very first outbreak of the Rage virus to the brand new threats that are popping up for a new generation. Let's get into it. This whole thing kicked off with a surprisingly simple question, almost a noble one. What if we could cure anger? I mean, treat it like a disease. Just imagine that. A world without our most violent, destructive impulses. Sounds pretty great, doesn't it? Well, as this series shows us in the most brutal way possible, sometimes the cure is so much worse than the disease. And that brings us right back to the start, 28 days later. This is the ground zero of the apocalypse, where some very well-meaning scientists in a primate research center accidentally cooked up the end of Great Britain as we know it. Here's the crazy thing. The rage virus was never meant to be a weapon. Scientists were actually trying to inhibit rage, to isolate it so they could study it. But the virus they created is unbelievably contagious. A single drop of blood, a bite, and that's it. It doesn't kill you, it just strips away everything that makes you human, leaving behind nothing but pure, unfiltered rage. It turns people into these incredibly fast, hostile killing machines with just one single thought: infect everyone else. So after some animal rights activists liberate an infected chimp, the virus just explodes. It spreads like wildfire. In just 15 days, the whole of Britain is quarantined from the rest of the world. Then, 28 days later, our main guy, a bicycle courier named Jim, wakes up from a coma. He has no idea what's happened, and he walks out into this now iconic, totally silent, and completely empty London. It is just chilling. Jim's first few days are just this brutal crash course in survival. He meets other survivors, he loses them just as fast, and he has to learn the new, harsh rules of this world. He eventually teams up with Selena, a tough-as-nails survivor, and a father-daughter duo, Frank and Hannah. They follow this radio broadcast promising safety, a military blockade. But what they find there, well, it's something way more sinister than the infected. Turns out the soldiers, led by Major Henry West, weren't offering a safe haven. They were luring people in, specifically to enslave the women to repopulate their new world. This is the moment Jim learns the hardest lesson of all. The infected aren't the only monsters out there. He manages to turn the tables, unleashing an infected on the soldiers and escaping with Selena and Hannah. But he's a different person after that. All right, let's jump ahead to 28 weeks later. After the first wave of infected starves to death, NATO thinks, okay, let's try this again. They decide to try and reclaim the island, setting up this super secure zone in London called District 1. They think they've got it all under control. They were so wrong. The whole plan just completely implodes. All it takes is one person, a woman who happens to be an asymptomatic carrier of the virus, to bring it all crashing down. The infection gets back into the safe zone, and it just rips through the population. It moves so fast that the military makes a horrifying call, Code Red. They firebomb the entire district, killing everyone inside, infected and survivor alike. And just like that, all plans to take back Britain are off the table for good. Okay, now we take a massive leap forward, 28 years. The rest of the world has pretty much moved on, leaving Great Britain as this abandoned, infected quarantine zone. But life finds a way, right? A whole new generation has been born into this world, and they've actually learned how to survive in it. We land on the island of Lindisfarne. It's home to a small, tough community that has figured out how to make a life for themselves. They're protected by a causeway that you can only cross at low tide, which is a pretty clever defense. And here, we meet our new family. Jaima, his wife Isla, who's got some kind of mysterious sickness, and their 12-year-old son, Spike. For Spike, today is a massive deal. It's his first hunt over on the mainland. This is basically their coming-of-age ritual. To be seen as an adult in this world, a kid has to prove they can leave the safety of the island and kill the infected. But here's the thing. The infected are not the same threat they were 28 years ago. They've evolved. Back then, they were just these mindless rage machines that eventually starved to death. Now, they've learned to eat. You have these slower ones they call crawlers that live on worms, and more importantly, they've started to work together in coordinated packs. And leading these new packs is a terrifying new development, the alpha infected. And this isn't just a bigger, stronger infected. No, this one is intelligent. It's a leader. It can set traps, it can coordinate attacks, it can think. This changes the entire game. While Jaime and Spike are on the mainland, they find something really disturbing. A deer head, severed and placed high up in a tree. It's a clear territorial marker. And Jaime's horrified reaction in this moment, it says everything. This isn't just random rage anymore. This is a calculated, strategic threat. Spike is just tortured by his mom's sickness getting worse and worse. After a big fight with his dad, he finds out about some mysterious doctor named Kelson, who supposedly lives on the mainland. Clinging to this one last shred of hope, Spike grabs his mom and leaves the island. He's determined to find a cure for her. But what he finds isn't a doctor's office. It's a horror show. Dr. Kelson has been building this thing he calls the Bone Temple. It's a massive, grotesque monument built entirely out of the skeletons of the dead. Remember those fires Spike saw from the island? They weren't for warmth. That was Kelson preparing his building materials. Dr. Kelson looks at Isla, and he confirms the awful truth that she already knew but was just too terrified to tell her son. She has late-stage cancer. It's spreading through her brain, through her body. There was never any cure. The whole journey was for nothing. After his mother passes, Kelson gives Spike one last morbid job to do: find a place for her skull on the temple. Spike climbs all the way to the top and places her in the highest spot he can find. It's this strange, cathartic moment, but he comes down a different kid. He's totally disillusioned with his dad, with all the adults, with all the lies. He decides he's not going back. He's going to survive on his own. The mainland has more dangers than just the infected, and this is where we hit a shocking cliffhanger, and a new human threat that might be even more unsettling than anything we've seen before. While he's out hunting, Spike gets some unexpected help from a group of men, and they're strange. They all have the same bleached blonde hair, and they fight the infected with these incredible skills, using blades and parkour. They're led by this charismatic but really odd guy who says his name is Jimmy. And this is where the story just leaves us hanging. The leader asks Spike for his name. When Spike tells him, the man just calmly, creepily rejects it. He's trying to erase who Spike is, to absorb him into his cult. And then the screen just cuts to black. So that's where we stand heading into the Bone Temple. We have two enormous new threats on the board. First, the evolved strategic alpha infected, a completely new kind of enemy. And second, this deeply disturbing human cult, which honestly seems just as dangerous, if not a whole lot more. Which, of course, brings us all the way back to the question that's been at the very heart of this whole series from day one. In a world completely consumed by rage, are the mindless infected really the biggest threat? Or, as Jim learned the hard way, and now Spike is learning, are humans the real monsters after all?